Now we're going to start solving quadratics by factoring. So we're going to use all our factoring skills and find the zeros of our quadratics. So you're going to see that we can find it without using our calculator. So letter A, we need to factor x squared minus 6x plus 5. There's no GCF. We multiply the number that's in front of x squared, 1, by 5. We get 5. And the middle number is 6. We want two numbers to multiply to 5 and add up to negative 6. So it's negative 5 and negative 1. So we split up that negative 6x into those two terms. So we get x squared minus 5x minus 1x plus 5. We take out an x in the first pair. We're left with x minus 5. We take out a negative 1, and we're left with x minus 5 again. So these, which isn't going to work for me, should be the same, which they are, and then our leftovers, x minus 1, goes in the other set of parentheses. B, we have 4 terms, so we don't have to do a diamond problem. So I'm going to do the box here, stick the 2x cubed in there, the x squared, negative 18x minus 9. So out of these two, I can't take anything except for 1. I can always take out a 1. Out of these two, I can take 2x. Out of these two, I can take x squared, and I can take negative 9 out of these two. So I'm left with 2x plus 1 times x squared minus 9. But this is a difference of squares. It's subtraction, and both of those are squared things, x squared and 3 squared. So it's x minus 3 and x plus 3, so we have 3 things. And we should have noticed, because we have x cubed. Letter C, x squared minus 4x. We take out our GCF, 4x, and that's it. We can't factor that anymore. There's no x squareds. Letter D, 6x squared minus 60x minus 66. Well, we can take out a 6. So we factor out a 6. We're left with x squared minus 10x minus 11. And then we want to split up, be careful what I write with, this. So we do our diamond problem. 1 times negative 11 is negative 11. B is negative 10. So we want two numbers to multiply to negative 11 and add up to negative 10. So it's negative 11x and 1x. So we split up that negative 10x into negative 11x and 1x. So we factor out an x out of the first pair and 1 out of the second pair, because we can always factor out a 1. So we have the same thing here, which is what we want. So x minus 11, x plus 1 is left over, and don't forget our GCF of 6. And we could do this by the box as well. X squared, negative 11x, 1x, and negative 11. Out of here I can take out negative 11. Here I can take out x. Here I can take out x. Here I can take out 1. So I have the same thing. And again, don't forget the GCF. So just a review of factoring. Now the last question here, if a times b equals 0, then what is true? Well, if something times something is 0, then either a is 0, b is 0, or they're both 0. And that's what we're going to use here. So to solve quadratic equations by factoring, you set the equation equal to 0. So you get the whole thing equal to 0 right away. Then you factor completely, like what we've been doing. 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms, doesn't matter. Set each factor equal to 0. And then since they're all factors, something times something equals 0, we can do this property and solve for each variable. So this first one, x squared minus 6x equals negative 5. Well, I got to set it equal to 0. So I want to get this over, it wasn't moving on me, this over here. So how do I do that? Well, how do we get rid of negative 5? I add 5. So now I have x squared minus 6x plus 5. I already factored it above. I'm not going to factor it again. So it's x plus 6 and x minus 1, and it equals 0. So since these two things, this times this equals 0, either this has to equal 0 or this has to equal 0. So we solve for both. So we subtract 6. We add x equals negative 6. We add 1 over here. X equals 1. So x is negative 6 or it's 1. Can't be both at the same time, obviously. And those are our zeros. And that's why when we are in factored form, we had the opposite of our zeros here. because with negative 6 gives us a 6 here, and negative 1 gives us a negative 1 here. That's why it was the opposite. Here, we subtract 4x from both sides, so we get x squared minus 4x. Take out our GCF, 4x, get 4x times 2x minus 1, and set them both equal to 0. 4x equals 0. Well, we divide by 4, x equals 0. Or, we set 2x minus 1 equals 0. Add 1 to both sides. We get 2x equals 1, divide by 2, so x equals 1/2. So we have two different answers. We move down. 2x cubed minus 16x minus 9 equals negative x squared plus 2x. Well, we want everything on one side because we want it to equal 0. So we add x squared to both sides and subtract 2x from both sides. I did it all in one step. Save some time. So the x squared is by itself, so we kind of just throw it in there. 2x cubed's there. Negative 2x and the negative 16x gives us negative 18x. And we get negative 9, because there's no number here, equals 0. And we already factored it above. So there's three parts, 2x plus 1, x minus 3, and x plus 3. So we set them all equal to 0. 2x plus 1 equals 0, subtract 1, divide by 2, x equals negative 1/2. X minus 3 equals 0, add 3 to both sides, x equals 3. X plus 3 equals 0, subtract 3 from both sides, x equals negative 3. The reason we have three answers is because we had x cubed here. Now that I can't see it, we have x cubed. If you noticed, here we had x squared. And we had x squared, so we only had two answers. So this next one, it's x squared, we're going to have two answers. So we subtract 60x from both sides to get this side equal to 0. Again, we factored above, so we have three parts. Well, we have three parts, but we only have two answers. Well, we said each one of those equal to 0. 6 equals 0. 6 can't equal 0. So that part doesn't make sense. So, of course, now we're only going to have two zeros. X plus 1 equals 0. We subtract 1. X equals negative 1. X minus 11 equals 0. We add 11 to both sides. X equals 11. So it's just an extra step doing what we did before. And now we can check this. If we look at our graphs, I plugged all these in. I don't want to look at all of them at the same time. That'd be crazy. So if I look at my first graph, where are my zeros? 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 5. Well, 1 and, negative 6, not 5. So something did not go right. Because I did not factor right. I got x minus 1 and x minus 5. I didn't factor the correct way here. So it kind of proves that we all make mistakes. I couldn't even copy my own work right. That's not good. So this first term is x minus 5. So then I add 5 to both sides. So x, come on. I'm not really sure what's going on here. Alright, let's fix this. So plus 5, so x equals 5. So it is what it should be, even though I screwed up. Alright, so let's look at the second one. Hopefully I didn't screw up that one. 8x squared minus 4x. Now, I went back to these originals when they were equal to 0, 4. So 8x squared minus 4x. So go here. I'm going to, over here, take this one off. And look at this one. And we said the zeros were... we didn't have the zeros here. We have the zeros here. 0 and 1/2. Well, let's see if that's what it is. Kind of tough to tell, isn't it? So I got to change my window. And I think I just need to change my X. I'm going to go real narrow because I don't need to see a whole lot. And I hit minus instead of negative. Same stupid problems I always have. So I'll graph up 0, and that looks like -1, but we can't be sure. So let's find our 0. To the left, to the right, take a guess. 0.5, all right, it is. Good. And now, take that one off, and we'll look at this one next. Whoop, not this one. This one, this isn't even a quadratic, it's x cubed. But we can still do that. So we should have zeros at x is -1/2, 3, and -3. So we should have 3 zeros. So this should look a lot different. It's not a U, it's a little bit more. So let's see what we got. I'm excited to see what's going on here. Oh. Alright, so I think I need to zoom out a little bit or change my windows. I change it from, for the last problem, we'll go down to 10. Now graph it. So it goes up and back down, so it's kind of a little bit different. But if we look, we do have 3 zeros. And let's cheat. Let's not do the function. Let's look at the zeros here. 3, 0, -3, and what was the other zero supposed to be? -1/2. So again, let's cheat. Let's just plug in. What? That's not what we're supposed to do. Value. So -0.5. And of course I hit the wrong button. It should be a negative, not minus. And it's a 0. Good. So we've checked all of them except for this last one. Let's check it. Again, let's look at what they should be. Obviously 6 can't be 0, so that one didn't count. So x is -1 and x equals 11. So let's see what we can do. Now right now, if x equals 11, I know that my window's not going to work. I got to change my x max to, let's do 20. Alright, it looks good. It looks like -1. That looks like 11. Now I can use my function and go here, or I can go to the table. I'm going to go to the table. So -1, that's a 0, and 11, that's a 0. So it all works out. We did it correctly. Yay!